Welcome, Wapham crew, guys, gals, ghouls, and otherworldly beings. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Plata. It's on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in Cova, Colorado. I'm your ghostess, TessaTNT, broadcasting from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, wherever you may be out there beyond the Omniverse tonight. And welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you're here. I hope your weekend is going good. The world has gone mad, and it's insane. We got the solar weather, we got the planetary weather, we have earthquakes all over the place, volcanoes erupting, especially the ancient ones. Like, that to me is crazy. Supposedly the Ring of Fire is awake. And all the war shenanigans. Can't we just all get along? But yeah, I hope you're safe from that, and if you are affected, my thoughts and prayers go out to you, and hopefully this will be a little break from reality for you, or thinking, or whatever you may want to break from. If you want to listen in your free time, whether you're working it, or working out, you can listen to me on Spreaker.com and wherever else you may listen to your broadcasts and podcasts. Basically everywhere. Which is pretty good. Alright, so this is our pre-record. So we're going to be doing story time with me, TessaTNT. And I think I'm going to do some more pre-recording for next weekend, because I'm going to be in the Phoenix, Arizona area. My sister's graduating from college, so that's exciting. Gonna get to see my mom and my grandma and a whole bunch of family. For story time, we have been reading the Mega Horror Pack, or the Horror Megapack, 25 modern and classic horror stories. There's tons of authors in here. Front cover, we have H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, Darrell, Schweitzer, Henry Kuttner, William F. Nolen, Seabury, Quin, John Gregory, Betancourt, and more. But wait, there's more. What chapter are we on exactly? I do not know. Wow, we've already been 6 hours and 10 minutes into this book. Seems on par. Yeah, I'm curious what story we are reading. Well, I have it marked, so let's go see. I think it's the Guest of Dracula? Yeah, Dracula's Guest by Bram Stoker. I remembered it kinda, I had the right words, they just weren't in the correct order. Alright. Gradually, there came a sort of vague beginning of consciousness, then a sense of wariness that was dreadful. For a time I remembered nothing, but slowly my sense returned. My feet seemed positively racked with pain, yet I could not move them. They seemed to be numbed. There was an icy feeling at the back of my neck and all down my spine, and my ears, like my feet, were dead, yet in torment. But there was in my breast a sense of warmth, which was, by comparison, delicious. It was as a nightmare, a physical nightmare, if one may use such an expression, for some heavy weight on my chest made it difficult for me to breathe. This period of semi-lethargy seemed to remain a long time, and as it faded away, I must have slept or swooned. Then came a sort of loathing, like the first stage of seasickness, and a wild desire to be free from something, I knew not what. A vast stillness enveloped me, as though all the world were asleep or dead, only broken by the low panting as of some animal close to me. I felt a warm rasping at my throat, then came a consciousness of the awful truth, which chilled me to the heart and sent the blood surging up through my brain. Some great animal was lying on me and now licking my throat. I feared to stir, for some instinct of prejudice bade me lie still, but the brute seemed to realize that there was now some change in me, for it raised its head. Through my eyelashes I saw above me the two great flaming eyes of a gigantic wolf. Its sharp white teeth gleamed in the gaping red mouth, and could feel its hot breath fierce and acrid upon me. For another spell of time I remembered no more. Then I became conscious of a low growl, followed by a yelp renewed again and again. Then, seemingly very far away, I heard, "Hello! Hello!" as of many voices calling in unison. Cautiously I raised my head and looked in the direction whence the sound came, but the cemetery blocked my view. The wolf still continued to yelp in a strange way, and a red glare began to move round the grove of cypresses, as though following the sound. As the voices drew closer, the wolf yelped faster and louder. I feared to make either sound or motion. Nearer came the red glow over the white wall which stretched into the darkness around me. Then all at once from behind the trees there came at a trot a troop of horsemen bearing torches. The wolf rose from my breast and made for the cemetery. I saw one of the horsemen, soldiers by their caps and their long military cloaks, raise his carbine and take aim. A companion knocked up his arm, and I heard a ball whiz over my head. He had evidently taken my body for that of the wolf. Another sighted the animal as it slunk away, and a shot followed. Then, at a gallop, the troop rode forward, some towards me, others following the wolf as it disappeared amongst the snow-clad cypresses. As they drew nearer, I tried to move, but was powerless, although I could see and hear all that went on around me. 2 or 3 of the soldiers jumped from their horses and knelt beside me. One of them raised my head and placed his hand over my heart. "Good news, comrades," he cried. "His heart still beats." Then some brandy was poured down my throat. It put vigor into me, and I was able to open my eyes and fully look around. Lights and shadows were moving among the trees, and I heard men call to one another. They drew together, uttering frightened exclamations, and the lights flashed as the others came pouring out of the cemetery, pell-mell like men possessed. When the further ones came close to us, those who were around me asked them eagerly, "Well, have you found him?" The reply rang out hurriedly, "No, no, come away quick, quick. This is no place for stay, and on this of all nights." What was it? Was the question asked in all manner of keys. The answer came variously and all indefinitely, as though the men were moved to some common impulse to speak, yet were restrained by some common fear from giving their thoughts. It indeed, gibbered one whose wits had plainly given out for the moment. A wolf, and yet not a wolf, another put in shudderingly. "No use trying for him without the sacred bullet," a third remarked in a more ordinary manner. "Serve us right for coming out this night. Truly we have earned our 1,000 marks," were the ejaculations of a fourth. There was blood on the broken marble, another said after a pause. "The lightning never brought that there, and for him, is he safe? Look at his throat. See, comrades, the wolf has been lying on him and keeping his blood warm. That's pretty cool." The officer looked at my throat and replied, "He is all right. The skin is not pierced. What does it all mean? We should never have found him but for the yelping of the wolf." "What became of it?" asked the man who was holding up my head and who seemed the least panic-stricken of the party, for his hands were steady and without tremor. On his sleeve was the chevron of a petty officer. "It went to its home," answered the man whose long face was pallid and who actually shook with terror as he glanced around himself fearfully. "There are graves enough there in which it may lie. Come, comrades, come quickly, let us leave this cursed spot." The officer raised me to a sitting posture. As he uttered a word of command, then several men placed me upon a horse. He sprang to the saddle behind me, took me in his arms, gave the word to advance, and turning our faces away from the cypresses, we rode away in swift military order. As yet my tongue refused its office. I was, perforce, silent. I must have fallen asleep, for the next thing I remembered was finding myself standing up, supported by a soldier on each side of me. It was almost broad daylight, and the north, a red streak of sunlight, was daylight, and to the north... See, I did a repeat. North, a red streak of sunlight was reflected, like a path of blood over the waste of snow. The officer was telling the men to say nothing of what they had seen, except that they found an English stranger guarded by a large dog. "Dog? That was no dog," put in the man who had exhibited such fear. "I think I know a wolf when I see one." The young officer answered calmly, "I said a dog." "Dog," retreated the other ironically. It was evident that his courage was rising with the sun, and pointing to me, he said, "Look at his throat. Is that the work of a dog, master?" Instinctively I raised my hand to my throat, and as I touched it, I cried out in pain. The men crowded round to look. Some stooped down from their saddles, and again there came the calm voice of the young officer. "A dog, as I said. If aught else were said, we should only be laughed at." I was then mounted behind a trooper, and we rode on into the suburbs of Munich. Here we came across a stray carriage into which I was lifted, and it was driven off to a quatre saisons. The young officer accompanying me, whilst a trooper followed with his horse, and the others rode off to their barracks. When we arrived, Herr Lebrun rushed so quickly down the steps to meet me that it was apparent he had been watching within. Taking me by both hands, he solicitously led me in. The officer saluted me and was turning to the window when I recognized his purpose, and insisted that he should come to my rooms. Over a glass of wine, I warmly thanked him and his brave comrades for saving me. He replied simply that he was more than glad, and that Herr Delbruck had at the first taken steps to make all the searching party pleased, at which ambiguous utterance and Maitre d'Hotel smiled, while the officer pleaded duty and withdrew. "But Herr Delbruck," I inquired, "how and why was it that the soldiers searched for me?" He shrugged his shoulders as if in appreciation of his own deed as he replied, "I was so fortunate as to obtain leave from the commander of the regiment in which I served to ask for volunteers. But how did you know I was lost?" I asked. "The driver came hither with the remains of his carriage, which he had been upset when the horses ran away. But surely you would not send a search party of soldiers merely on this account?" "Oh, no," he answered. "But even before the coachman arrived, I had this telegram from Boyer, whose guest you are." And he took from his pocket a telegram, which he handed to me, and I read, "Bistritz. Be careful of my guest. His safety is most precious to me. should aught happen to him, or if he be missed, spare nothing to find him and ensure his safety. He is English and therefore adventurous. There are often dangers from snow and wolves at night. Lose not a moment if you suspect harm to him. I answer your zeal with my fortune. Dracula. As I held the telegram in my hand, the room seemed to whirl around me, and if the attentive maître d'hôtel had not caught me, I think I should have fallen. There was something so strange in all this, something so weird and impossible to imagine, that there grew on me a sense of my being in some way the sport of opposite forces, the mere vague idea of which seemed in a way to paralyze me. I was certainly under some form of mysterious protection. From a distant country had come, in the very nick of time, a message that took me out of the danger of the snow sleep in the jaws of the wolf. We are on to our next story, which is The Man Who Found Out by Algernon Blackwood. A Nightmare. 1. Professor Mark Eber, the scientist, led a double life, and the only persons who knew it were his assistant, Dr. Laidlaw, and his publishers. But a double life need not always be a bad one, and as Dr. Laidlaw and the gratified publishers well knew, the parallel lives of this particular man were equally good, and indefinitely produced would certainly have ended in a heaven somewhere that can suitably contain such strangely opposite characteristics as his remarkable personality combined. For Mark Eber, FRS, etc., was that unique combination hardly ever met with in actual life. A man of science and a mystic. As the first, his name stood in the gallery of the great, and as the second, but there came the mystery. For under the pseudonym of Pilgrim, the author of the brilliant series of books that appealed to so many, his identity was as well concealed as that of the anonymous writer of the weather reports in a daily newspaper. Thousands read the sanguine, optimistic, stimulating little books that issued annually from the pen of Pilgrim, and thousands bore their daily burdens better for having read, while the press generally agreed that the author, besides being an incorrigible enthusiast and optimist, was also a woman. But no one ever succeeded in penetrating the veil of anonymity and discovering that Pilgrim and the biologist were one and the same person. Mark Eber was, as Dr. Laidlaw knew him in his laboratory, was one man, but Mark Eber, as he sometimes saw him after work, was over, with rapt eyes and ecstatic face, discussing the possibilities of union with God, and the future of the human race was quite another. I have always held, as you know, he was saying one evening as he sat in the little study beyond the laboratory with his assistant and intimate, that vision should play a large part in the life of the awakened man, not to be regarded as infallible, of course, but to observe and made use of as a guide-post to possibilities. I am aware of your peculiar views, sir, the young doctor put in deferentially, yet with a certain impatience. For visions come from a region of the consciousness where observation and experiment are out of the question, pursued the other with enthusiasm, not noticing the interruption, and while they should be checked by reason afterwards, they should not be laughed at or ignored. All inspiration, I hold, is of nature of interior vision. In all our best knowledge has come, such is my confirmed belief, as a sudden revelation to the brain prepared to receive it. Prepared by hard work first, by concentration, by the closest possible study of ordinary phenomena, Dr. Laidlow allowed himself to observe. Perhaps, sighed the other, but by a process, nonetheless, of spiritual illumination. The best match in the world will not light a candle unless the wick be first suitably prepared. It was Laidlaw's turn to sigh. He knew so well the impossibility of arguing with his chief when he was in the regions of the mystic. But at the same time, the respect he felt for his tremendous attainments was so sincere that he always listened with attention and deference, wondering how far the great man would go and to what end this curious combination of logic and illumination would eventually lead him. Only last night, continued the elder man, a sort of light coming into his rugged features, this vision came to me again, the one that was haunted me at intervals ever since my youth, and that will not be denied. Dr. Laidlaw fidgeted in his chair. About the tablets of the gods, you mean, and that they lie somewhere hidden in the sands? He said patiently. A sudden gleam of interest came into his face as he turned to catch the professor's reply. And that I am to be the one to find them, to decipher them, and to give the great knowledge to the world. Who will not believe? Laughed Laidlaw, shortly, yet interested in spite of his thinly veiled contempt. Because even the keenest minds in the right sense of the word are hopelessly unscientific, replied the other gently, his face positively aglow with the memory of his vision. Yet what is more likely, he continued after a moment's pause, peering into space with rapt eyes that saw things too wonderful for exact language to describe, than that there should have been given to man in the first ages of the world some record of the purpose and problem that had been set him to solve. In a word, he cried, fixing his shining eyes upon the face of his perplexed assistant, that God's messengers in the far-off ages should have given to his creatures some full statement of the secret of the world, of the secret of the soul, of the meaning of life and death, the explanation of our being here, and to what degree and we are destined in the ultimate fullness of things. Dr. Laidlaw sat speechless. These outbursts of mystical enthusiasm he had witnessed before. With any other man, he would not have listened to a single sentence, but to Professor Eber, man of knowledge and profound investigator, he listened with respect, because he regarded this condition as temporary and pathological, and in some sense a reaction from the intense strain of the prolonged mental concentration of many days. He smiled with something between sympathy and resignation as he met the other's rapt gaze. But you have said, sir, at other times that you consider the ultimate secrets to be screened from all possible— The ultimate secrets, yes, came the unperturbed reply, but that there lies buried somewhere an indestructible record of the secret meaning of life, originally known to man in the days of their pristine innocence. I am convinced, and by this strange vision so often vouchsafed to me, I am equally sure that one day it shall be given to me to announce to a weary world this glorious and terrific message. And he continued at great length and in glowing language to describe the species of vivid dream that had come to him at intervals since earliest childhood, showing in detail how he discovered these very tablets of the gods, and proclaimed their splendid contents. Well, I had an incoming, so hopefully I can pick up where I left off. The scrutator, sir, will describe Pilgrim as the apostle of hope, said the young doctor gently, when he had finished. And now, if that reviewer could hear you speak and realize from what strange depths comes your simple faith. The professor held up his hand, and the smile of a little child broke over his face like sunshine in the morning. Half the good my books do would be instantly destroyed, he said sadly. They would say that I wrote with my tongue in my cheek, but wait, he added significantly. Wait till I find these tablets of the gods. Wait till I hold the solutions of the old world problems in my hands. Wait till the light of this new revelation breaks. As it breaks upon confused humanity, and it wakes to find its bravest hopes justified, then, my dear Laidlaw. He broke off suddenly, but the doctor, cleverly guessing the thought in his mind, caught him up immediately. Perhaps this very summer, he said, trying hard to make the suggestion keep pace with honesty. In your explorations in Assyria, you're digging in the remote civilization of what was once Chaldea. Or is it Chaldea? You may find what you dream of. The professor held up his hand in the smile of a fine old face. Perhaps, he murmured softly, perhaps. And the young doctor, thanking the gods of science that his leader's aberrations were of so harmless a character, went home, strong in the certitude of his knowledge of externals, proud that he was able to refer his visions to self-suggestion, and wondering complacently whether in his old age he might not, after all, suffer himself from visitations of the very kind that afflicted his respected chief. And as he got into bed and thought again of his master's rugged face and finely shaped head and the deep lines traced by years of work and self-discipline, he turned over on his pillow and fell asleep with a sigh that he was half of wonder, half of regret. Two. It was in February, 9 months later, when Dr. Laidlaw made his way to Charing Cross to meet his chief after his long absence of travel and exploration. The vision about the so-called tablets of the gods had meanwhile passed almost entirely from his memory. There were few people in the train, for the steam of traffic was now running the other way, and he had no difficulty in finding the man he had come to meet. The shock of white hair beneath a low-crowned felt hat was alone enough to distinguish him by easily. Here I am at last, he exclaimed, the professor somewhat warily, clasping his friend's hand as he listened to the young doctor's warm greetings and questions. Here I am, a little older and much dirtier than when you last saw me. He glanced down laughingly at his travel-stained garments. Much wiser, said Laidlaw with a smile, as he bustled about the platform for porters and gave his chief the latest scientific news. At last they came down to practical considerations. And your luggage, where is that? You must have tons of it, I suppose, said Laidlaw. Hardly anything, Professor Eber answered. Nothing, in fact, but what you see. Nothing but this handbag? Laughed the other, thinking he was joking. And a small portmanteau in the van, was the quiet reply. I have no other luggage. You have no other luggage, repeated Laidlaw, turning sharply to see if he were in earnest. Why should I need more? The professor added simply. Something in the man's face or voice or manner, the doctor hardly knew, which suddenly struck him as strange. There was a change in him, a change so profound, so little on the surface, that is, that at first he had not become aware of it. For a moment it was as though an utterly alien personality stood before him in that noisy, bustling throng. Here in all the homely, friendly turmoil of the Charing Cross crowd, a curious feeling of cold passed over his heart, touching his life with icy finger, so that he actually trembled and felt afraid. looked up quickly at his friend, his mind working with startled and unwelcome thoughts. "Only this," he repeated, indicating the bag. "But where's all the stuff you went away with? And have you brought nothing home? No treasures?" "This is all I have," the other said briefly. The pale smile that went with the words caused the doctor a second indescribable sensation of uneasiness. Something was very wrong. Something was very queer. He wondered now that he had not noticed it sooner. "The rest follows, of course, by slow freight," he added tactfully and as naturally as possible. "But come, sir. You must be tired and in want of food after your long journey. I'll get a taxi at once and we can see about the other luggage afterwards." It seemed to him he hardly knew quite what he was saying. The change in his friend had come upon him so suddenly and now grew upon him more and more distressingly. Yet he could not make out exactly in what it consisted. A terrible suspicion began to take shape in his mind, troubling him dreadfully. "I am neither very tired nor in need of food, thank you," the professor said quietly. "And this is all I have. There is no luggage to follow. I have brought home nothing but what you see." His words conveyed finality. They got into a taxi, tipped the porter, who had been staring in amazement at the venerable figure of the scientist, and were conveyed slowly, but noisily to the house in the north of London, where the laboratory was, the scene of their labors of years. And the whole way, Professor Eber uttered no word, nor did Dr. Laidlaw find the courage to ask a single question. Excuse me. It was only late that night before he took his departure, as the two men were standing before the fire in the study. That study where they had discussed so many problems of vital and absorbing interest, that Dr. Laidlaw at last found strength to come to the point with direct questions. The professor had been giving him a superficial and desultory account of his travels, of his journeys by camel, of his encampments among the mountains and in the desert, and of his explorations among the buried temples, and deeper into the waste of the prehistoric sands, when suddenly the doctor came to the desired point with a kind of nervous rush, almost like a frightened boy. "And you found?" he began stammering, looking hard at the other's dreadfully altered face, from which every line of hope and cheerfulness seemed to have been obliterated, as a sponge wipes markings from a slate. "You found?" "I found," replied the other in a solemn voice, and it was the voice of the mystic rather than the man of science. "I found what I went to seek. The vision never once failed me, but led me straight to the place like a star in the heavens. I found the tablets of God. The tablets of the gods." Sorry, guys, I have a frog in my throat. Dr. Laidlaw caught his breath and steadied himself on the back of a chair. The words felt like particles of ice upon his heart. For the first time, the professor had uttered the well-known phrase without the glow of light, and wondered in his face that always accompanied it. "You have brought them?" he faltered. "I have brought them home," said the other in a voice with a ring like iron, "and I have deciphered them." Profound despair, the bloom of outer darkness, the dead sound of a hopeless soul freezing in the utter cold of space, seemed to fill in the pauses between the brief sentences. A silence followed, during which Dr. Laidlaw saw nothing but the white face before him, alternately fade and return, and it was like the face of a dead man. "They are, alas, indestructible," he heard the voice continue with its even metallic ring, Indestructible, Laidlaw repeated mechanically, hardly knowing what he was saying. Again a silence of several minutes passed, during which, with a creeping cold about his heart, he stood and stared into the eyes of the man he had known and loved so long. Aye, and worshipped too. The man who had first opened his own eyes when they were blind, and had led him to the gates of knowledge, and no little distance along the difficult path beyond. The man who, in another direction, had passed on the strength of his faith into the hearts of the thousands by his books. "I may see them?" he asked at last, in a low voice he hardly recognized as his own. "You will let me know their message?" Professor Eber kept his eyes fixedly upon his assistant's face as he answered, with a smile that was more like the grin of death than a living human smile. "When I am gone," he whispered, "when I have passed away, then you shall find them, and read the translation I have made. And then, too, in your turn you must try, with the latest resources of science at your disposal to aid you, to compass their utter destruction." He paused a moment, and his face grew pale as the face of a corpse. "Until that time," he added presently without looking up, "I must ask you not to refer to the subject again, and to keep my confidence. Meanwhile, absolutely." Three. A year passed slowly by, and at the end of it, Dr. Laidlaw had found it necessary to sever his working connection with his friend and one-time leader. Professor Eber was no longer the same man. The light had gone out of his life. The laboratory was closed. He no longer put pen to paper or applied his mind to a single problem. In the short space of a few months he had passed from a hale and hearty man of late middle life to the condition of old age, a man collapsed and on the edge of dissolution. Death, it was plain, lay waiting for him in the shadows of any day, and he knew it. To describe faithfully the nature of this profound alteration in his character and temperament is not easy, but Dr. Laidlaw summed it up to himself in 3 words: loss of hope. The splendid mental powers remained indeed undimmed, but the incentive to use them for the help of others, had gone. The character still held to its fine and unselfish habits of years, but the far goal to which they had seen the leading strings had faded away. The desire for knowledge for its own sake, had died, and the passionate hope which hitherto had animated with tireless energy the heart and brain of this splendidly equipped intellect, had suffered total eclipse. The central fires had gone out. Nothing was worth doing, thinking, working for. There was nothing to work for any longer. The professor's first step was to recall as many of his books as possible. His second, to close his laboratory and stop all research. He gave no explanation. He invited no questions. His whole personality crumbled away, so to speak, till his daily life became a mere mechanical process of clothing the body, feeding the body, keeping it in good health so as to avoid physical discomfort, and above all, doing nothing that could interfere with sleep. The professor did everything he could to lengthen the hours of sleep, and therefore of forgetfulness. It was all clear enough to Dr. Laidlaw, a weaker man, he knew, who would have sought to lose himself in one form or another of sensual indulgence, sleeping draughts, drink, and first pleasures that came to hand. Self-destruction would have been the method of a little bolder type and deliberate evil-doing, poisoning with his awful knowledge all he could, the means of still another kind of man. Mark Eber was none of these. He held himself under fine control, facing silently and without complaint the terrible facts he honestly believed himself to have been unfortunate enough to discover, even to his intimate friend and assistant. Dr. Laidlaw, he vouchsafed no word of true explanation or lament. He went straight forward to the end, and knowing well that the end was not very far away. And death came very quietly one day to him, as he was sitting in the armchair of the study directly facing the doors of the laboratory, the doors that no longer opened. Dr. Laidlaw, by happy chance, was with him at the time, and just able to reach his side in response to the sudden painful efforts for breath. Just in time, too, to catch the murmured words that fell from a pallid lips like a message from the other side of the grave. "Read them if you must, and if you can, destroy, but—" His voice sank as low that Dr. Laidlaw only just caught the dying syllables. "But never, never give them to the world." And like a gray bundle of dust loosely gathered up in an old garment, the professor sank back into his chair and expired. But this was only the death of the body. His spirit had died 2 years before. Well, that's sad. 4. The estate of the dead man was small and uncomplicated, and Dr. Laidlaw was sole executor and residuary legatee, but had no difficulty in setting it up. A month after the funeral, he was sitting alone in his upstairs library, the last sad duties completed, and his mind full of poignant memories and regrets for the loss of a friend he had revered and loved, and to whom his debt was so incalculably great. The last 2 years, indeed, had been for him terrible. To watch the swift decay of the greatest combination of heart and brain he had ever known, and to realize he was powerless to help, was a source of profound grief to him that would remain to the end of his days. At the same time, an insatiable curiosity possessed him. The study of dementia was, of course, outside his special province as a specialist, but he knew enough of it to understand how small a matter might be the actual cause of how great an illusion, and he had been devoured from the very beginning by a ceaseless and increasing anxiety to know what the professor had found in the sands of Aldea. What these precious tablets of the gods might be, and particularly for this was the real cause that had sapped the man's sanity and hope. What the inscription was that he had believed to have deciphered therein. The curious feature of it all, to his own mind, was that whereas his friend had dreamed of finding a message of glorious hope and comfort, he had apparently found, so far as he had found anything intelligible at all, and not invented the whole thing in his dementia, that the secret of the world and the meaning of life and death was of so terrible a nature that it robbed the heart of courage and the soul of hope. What, then, could the contents of the little brown parcel and professor had bequeathed to him with his pregnant dying sentences? Actually, his hand was trembling as he turned to the writing tablet and began slowly to unfasten a small, old-fashioned desk on which the small gilt initials, M.E., stood forth as a melancholy memento. He put the key into the lock and half turned it. Then suddenly he stopped and looked about him. Was that a sound at the back of the room? It was just as though someone had laughed and then tried to smother the laugh with a cough. A slight shiver ran over him as he stood listening. "This is absurd," he said aloud. "Too absurd for belief, that I should be so nervous. It's the effect of curiosity unduly prolonged." He smiled a little sadly, and his eyes wandered to the blue summer sky and the plane trees swaying in the wind below his window. "It's the reaction," he continued. "The curiosity of 2 years to be quenched in a single moment. The nervous tension, of course, must be considerable." He turned back to the brown desk and opened it without further delay. His hand was firm now, and he took out the paper parcel that lay inside without a tremor. It was heavy. A moment later, there lay on the table before him a couple of weather-worn plaques of gray stone. They looked like stone, although they felt like metal, on which he saw markings of a curious character that might have been the mere tracings of natural forces through the ages, or, equally well, the half-obliterated hieroglyphics cut upon their surface in past centuries by the more or less untutored hand of the common scribe. He lifted each stone in turn and examined it carefully. It seemed to him that the faint glow of heat passed from the substance into his skin, and he put them down again, suddenly, as with a gesture of uneasiness. A very clever or a very imaginative man, he said to himself, who could squeeze the secrets of life and death from such broken lines as those. Then he turned to a yellow envelope lying beside them in the desk, with a single word on the outside in the writing of the professor. The word translation. Now, he thought, taking it up with a sudden violence to conceal his nervousness, now for the great solution. Now to learn the meaning of the worlds, and why mankind was made, and why discipline is worthwhile, and sacrifice and pain the true law of advancement. There was the shadow of a sneer in his voice, and yet something in him shivered at the same time. He held the envelope as though weighing it in his hand, his mind pondering many things. Then curiosity won the day, and he suddenly tore it open with the gesture of an actor who tears open a letter on the stage, knowing there is no real writing inside at all. A page of finely written script in the late scientist's handwriting lay before him. He read it through from beginning to end, missing no word, uttering each syllable distinctly under his breath as he read. The pallor of his face grew ghastly as he neared the end. He began to shake all over as with ague. Ague? His breath came heavily and gasped. He still gripped the sheet of paper, however, and deliberately, as by an intense effort of will, read it through a second time from beginning to end. And this time, as the last syllable dropped from his lips, the whole face of the man flamed with a sudden and terrible anger. His skin became deep, deep red, and he clenched his teeth. With all the strength of his vigorous soul, he was struggling to keep control of himself. For perhaps 5 minutes he stood there beside the table without stirring a muscle. He might have been carved out of stone. His eyes were shut, and only the heaving of the chest betrayed the fact that he was a living being. Then, with a strange quietness, he lit a match and applied it to the sheet of paper that he held in his hand. The ashes fell slowly about him, piece by piece, and he blew them from the window-sill into the air. His eyes followed them as they floated away on the summer wind that breathed so warmly over the world. He turned back slowly into the room. Although his actions and movements were absolutely steady and controlled, it was clear that he was on the edge of violent action. A hurricane might burst upon the still room any moment. His muscles were tense and rigid. Then, suddenly, he whitened, collapsed, and sank backwards into a chair, like a bundle of inert matter. He had fainted. In less than half an hour he recovered consciousness and sat up. As before, he made no sound. Not a syllable passed his lips. He rose quietly and looked about the room. Then he did a curious thing. Taking a heavy stick from the rack in the corner, he approached the mantelpiece, and with a heavy, shattering blow he smashed the clock to pieces. The glass fell in shivering atoms. "Cease your lying voice forever," he said in a curiously still, even tone. "There is no such thing as time." He took the watch from his pocket, swung it round several times by the long gold chain, smashed it into smithereens against the wall with a single blow, and then walked into his laboratory next door and hung its broken body on the bones of the skeleton in the corner of the room. Let one damned mockery hang upon another, he said, smiling oddly. Delusions, both of you, and cruel as false. He slowly moved back to the front room. He stopped opposite the bookcase, where stood in a row the scriptures of the world. Choicely bound and exquisitely printed, the late professor's most treasured possession, and next to them several books signed Pilgrim. One by one he took them from the shelf and hurled them through the open window. A devil's dreams! A devil's foolish dreams! He cried with a vicious laugh. Presently he stopped from sheer exhaustion. He turned his eyes slowly to the wall opposite, where hung a weird array of Eastern swords and daggers, scimitars and spears, the collections of many journeys. Crossed the room and ran his finger along the edge. His mind seemed to waver. No, he muttered presently. Not that way. There are easier and better ways than that. He took his hat and passed downstairs into the street. 5. It was 5 o'clock, and the June sun lay hot upon the pavement. He felt the metal doorknob burn the palm of his hand. "Ah, Laidlaw! This is well met," cried a voice at his elbow. "I was in the act of coming to see you. I've a case that will interest you, and besides, I remembered that you flavored your tea with orange leaves, and I admit it was Alexis Stephen, the great hypnotic doctor." "I've had no tea today," Laidlaw said in a dazed manner after staring for a moment, as though the other had struck him in the face. A new idea had entered his mind. "What's the matter?" asked Dr. Stephen quickly. "Something's wrong with you. It's this sudden heat or overwork. Come, man, let's go inside." A sudden light broke upon the face of the younger man, the light of a heaven-sent inspiration. He looked into his friend's face and told a direct lie. "Odd," he said. "I myself was just coming to see you. I have something of great importance to test your confidence with, but in your house, please." As Stephen urged him towards his own door, "In your house? It's only round the corner, and I cannot go back there, to my rooms, till I have told you." "I'm your patient for the moment," he added stammeringly as soon as they were seated in the privacy of the hypnotist's sanctum. "And I want "My dear Laidlaw," interrupted the other, in that soothing voice of command which had suggested to many a suffering soul that the cure for its pain lay in the powers of its own reawakened will. "I am always at your service, as you know. You have only to tell me what I can do for you, and I will do it." He showed every desire to help him out. His manner was indescribably tactful and direct. Dr. Laidlaw looked up into his face. "I surrender my will to you," he said, already calmed by the other's healing presence. "And I want you to treat me hypnotically, and at once. I want you to suggest to me," his voice became very tense, "that I shall forget till I die, everything that has occurred to me during the last 2 hours, till I die, mind," he added with solemn emphasis, "till I die." He floundered and stammered like a frightened boy. Alexis Stephen looked at him fixedly without speaking. "And further," Laidlaw continued, "I want you to ask me no questions. I wish to forget forever something I have recently discovered, something so terrible and yet so obvious that I can hardly understand why it is not patent to every mind in the world. For I have had a moment of absolute clear vision, of merciless clairvoyance, but I want no one else in the whole wide world to know what it is, least of all, old friend, yourself." He talked in utter confusion and hardly knew what he was saying. The pain on his face and the anguish in his voice were an instant passport to the other's heart. "Nothing is easier," replied Dr. Stephen. After a hesitation, so slight that the other probably did not even notice it. "Come into my other room, where we shall not be disturbed. I can heal you. Your memory of the last 2 hours shall be wiped out as though it had never been. You can trust me, absolutely." "I know I can," Laidlaw said simply as he followed him in. 6. An hour later they passed back into the front room again. The sun was already behind the houses opposite, and the shadows began to gather. "I went off easily?" Laidlaw asked. "You were a little obstinate at first, but though you came in like a lion, you came out like a lamb. I let you sleep a bit afterwards." Dr. Stephan kept his eyes rather steadily upon his friend's face. "What were you doing by the fire before you came here?" he asked, pausing in a casual tone, as he lit a cigarette and handed the case to his patient. Let me see. Oh, I know. I was worrying my way through poor old Eber's papers and things. I'm his executor, you know. Then I got weary and came out for a whiff of air." He spoke lightly in the perfect naturalness. Obviously, he was telling the truth. "I prefer specimens to papers," he laughed cheerily. I know," said Dr. Stephan, holding a lighted match for the cigarette. His face wore an expression of content. The experiment had been a complete success. The memory of the last 2 hours was wiped out utterly. Laidlaw was already chatting gaily and easily about a dozen other things that interested him. Together they went out into the street, and at his door, Dr. Stephan left him with a joke and a wry face that made his friend laugh heartily. Well, guys, we gotta go to our first break. We'll pick back up where we left off here. On this music break, we have King Cinnamon by Afra Nigeria with Fantastic and Alla Imo Ederella. Mr. Hosni Bronx, originally from Jamaica, but also hailing from the Bronx of New York, with Dance as a Lion. And then we have Nonye Toria with her buddy Chris with Paper Lovin'. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. We swap on like the water bam bam. King Cinnamon. Oh shit, baddest. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Play your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Play your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Put your brother, baby, gather something. Come on closer, baby, gather 19. I know you better, but I am the king. Your backside bigger than Bombay. Baby girl, bonkotum. I like the way you whine your bonkotum. Baby girl, bonkotum. I like the way you whine your bonkotum. Jamaica, Ghana, shout out to the ladies in Asia, Nigeria, South Africa. Say me love you. Please me, baby. Yeah. Turn up from you. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Play your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Take your bam bam anywhere you day. Play your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Give me love,
love you. Give me love, give me love. Oh, give me love, give me love. Hey, please me, baby. Oh. Yeah, turn up from you. Yeah, take your bum bum anywhere you day. Throw your bum bum, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bum bum anywhere you day. Throw your bum bum, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. King Cinema. You know what I'm saying?
We spot on the mix. Clip it all. from Jah. Dance, dance around this place, Rasta. Dance, dance, it's our chance to unite and chant the word. People in love, people in love, people in love, people in love. Yeah, humanity won't protect humanity. We have to save people from poverty. We don't want your frustration. We don't want your ambush, Babylon.
We swap on the beat.
Kanyi kele Chineke makwa na limo mbunde njem ọnụ. Kanyi kele onye nwụwa imakwa na limo mbunde njem ọnụ. Alimo, Alime Derelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Alimo State, Alime Derelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Alimo State, Alime Derelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Democracy Merelo, Ndime Merelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Alimo State, Alime Derelo, Alimo, Alime Derelo, Democracy Merelo, Ndime Merelo, Emeka Maramba, Ebere Maramba, Obana Maramba, Yes Lady Maramba, Her Excellency, Emeka Edio Hama, Emeka Edio Hama, Omenka Unanya Nidio Hama, Omenka Unanya Wa, Emeka Meki Modima, Emeka Meki Modima, Emeka puta no boy, oh yeah, Umu Wulenu, Emeka puta no boy, Okoma Dima, Umu Weme Poto, Emeka Meki Modima, Emeka Meki Modima, Ndem Jemba, Mwan Jemba, Ndem Jemano, Deputy Governor Mosque Chilike, Gerard Ronna Karaka, Wokoma Dima, Porabo, Deputy Governor Willis Deregima, Alukuta Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onya Jemano, Stanley Wamuche Karaka, Stanley Onya Babamba, President Good Life Foundation Shirike, President General, Senate Group of Companies, President General, Financial Matter Karaka, Alo Were Deregima, Alambise Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onya Jemano, Franklin Nate Shirike, Mebe Arabido Hotels, ABC Transport Karaka, Alo Were Deregima, Alambise Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Uchonya Gochanem, Honorable Wokoma Dima, Onye Horo Nyakeleli Yao, Mawugi, Ginando Tugio, Mawunule, Ntijigari Chinala, Imo State Yo, Mawugi, Ginando Tugio, Mawunule, Minigari Zonala, Imo State Yo, Alo Were Deregima, Alo Were Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, the chairman, Orange Drugs Limited, Jisa Anthony Ifani Chubun to business and na Ishirike, Ikenga the Chele, pride of his people, most outstanding one, Okoma Marama, Iborabo, Alo Were Deregima, Alijato Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Honorable Jobagu Shirike, Honorable Bina Shirike, Darrell Bossa Shirike, Ochuko Kereke Shirike, Okahu Be Shirike, Intina Benina Shirike, Onyamana construction. Shima rock, woko madema ikaraka. Onya shiwole hebo ni. Etemu imarama o. Woko mande jemba o. Woko madema ikaraka. Quiz popule. Ibo felamo. Onyo mana pito akana kompa ikaraka. Ezi wa mama. Mr. Ludiriwa. Woko meje jemba. CEO Elizabeth Ventures ikaraka. Democracy merielo. Ndime merielo. Democracy merielo. Thank God I'm from Imo State. Emeka has come to rejuvenate. Imo State, make you jubilate, make you celebrate. Emeka shipwen be say, this one no be say them say. Emeka has come to rejuvenate. Imo State, celebrate, make you jubilate. Ala mekele His Excellency Achikudenwa. Mekele kwa His Excellency Dr. Hakim. Yemaka Right Honorable PDK. Mekele kwa Right Honorable Jones Oyereri. Ala mekele Senator Onyebuchi Mr. Empowerment. Mekele kwa Right Honorable Emeka Chinedu. Umo mimo lowali bia mezela limo. Alima Dilama.
Cliffito.
She know me treat her better than her man. But she a worry about the millions. You love me for true, but certain things in life I say I want to do. Ay. So you say me need to understand that you are made for a money man. But if you can't love me now, don't love me later. When my later is much greater, it only proves that you love the paper, my paper.
Boy, me gon' love you now, me gon' love you later. When your later is much greater. Cause me a one-man trafficator, yeah. They say I love him, but I love you more. He took me shopping sprees and bought me finer, but a girl needs more. You're the one that gave me proper loving. He might have all the money, everything to satisfy me vanity, but in my heart I knew you were the only one that I would be loving from now till the end of time.
Don't love me later. When my later is much greater, it only proves that you love the paper, my paper.
Boy, me gon' love you now, me gon' love you later. When your later is much greater. Cause me a one-man trafficator, yeah.
Girl, I know you want stability, but that no mean say you fi sell your soul for vanity, no. Bright lights, fast cars at the city, and the fast lane make you lose your sanity. But me can't believe it, tell yourself so short. Forget the money you will make, man, break your parts. But your life make your choice because me now make you break my heart, no. If you can't love me now, don't love me later. When my later is much greater, it only proves that you love the paper, my paper.
Boy, me gon' love you now, me gon' love you later. When your later is much greater. Cause me a one-man trafficator, yeah.
If you can't love me now, don't love me later. When my later is much greater, it only proves that you love the paper, my paper.
Boy, me gon' love you now, me gon' love you later. When your later is much greater. Cause me a one-man trafficator, yeah.
I wanted to learn the hard way, so I'm taking you to lover school. You want money just for party, girl. You take me for fool.
Every piece of my heart I gave away. I gave it away to you. Why don't you understand, babe? What I feel for you is true. So
if you can't love me now, don't love me later. When my later is much greater, it only proves that you love the paper, my paper.
Boy, me gon' love you now, me gon' love you later. When your later is much greater. Cause me a one-man trafficator, yeah. Now
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. All right, let's get back to story time. Let me mark this page really quick so I can go back and see what it's called. I'm sorry, guys. I have like a terrible memory. My brain is fried. Wow. The man who found out. Oh, yes. Whatever he found out, he wasn't digging it. That's for sure. There it is. Like, I know I bookmarked the page. Okay. Don't dine on the professor's old papers by mistake, he cried as he vanished down the street. Dr. Laidlaw went up to his study at the top of the house. Halfway down he met his housekeeper, Mrs. Fewings. She was flustered and excited, and her face was very red and perspiring. "There have been burglars here," she cried excitedly, "or something funny. All your things is just... Anyhow, sir, I found everything out about everywhere." She was very confused. In this orderly and very precise establishment, it was unusual to find a thing out of place. "Oh, my specimens!" cried the doctor, dashing up the rest of the stairs at top speed. "Have they been touched, or—" He flew to the door of the laboratory. Mrs. Fewings panted up heavily behind him. "The laboratory ain't been touched," she explained breathlessly, "but they smashed the library clock, and they've on your gold watch, sir. The skeleton's hands and the books, they weren't no value they flung out there. The window, just like so much rubbish. They must have been wild drunk, the Laidlaw, sir." The young scientist made a hurried examination of the rooms. Nothing of value was missing. He began to wonder what kind of burglars they were. He looked up sharply at Mrs. Fewings, standing in the doorway. For a moment he seemed to cast about in his mind for something. "Odd," he said at length. "I only left here an hour ago, and everything was all right then. Was it, sir?" "Yes, sir." She glanced sharply at him. Her room looked out upon the courtyard, and she must have seen the books come crashing down, and also have heard the master leave the house a few minutes later. "And what's this rubbish the brutes have left?" he cried, taking up 2 slabs of worn grey stone on the writing tablet. "Bath brick or something, I do declare." He looked very sharply again at the confused and troubled housekeeper. "Throw them on the dust heap, Mrs. Fewings, and let me know if anything is missing in the house, and I will notify the police this evening." When she left the room, he went into the laboratory and took his watch off the skeleton's fingers. His face wore a troubled expression, but after a moment's thought it cleared again. His memory was a complete blank. "I suppose I left it on the writing table when I went out to take the air," he said, and there was no one present to contradict him. He crossed to the window and blew carelessly some ashes of burned paper from the sill, and stood watching them as they floated away lazily over the tops of the trees. Fantas by Oliver Onions. For barring all pother with this or the other, still Britons are lords of the main. The Chapter of Admirals. 1. As Abel Keeling lay on the galleon's deck, held from rolling down it only by his own weight when the sun gaze wandered, but ever returned to the bell that hung, jammed with dangerous heel-over of the vessel, in the small ornamental belfry immediately abaft the mainmast. The bell was of cast bronze, with half-obliterated bosses upon it that had been heads of cherubs, but wind and salt spray had given it a thick incrustation of bright, beautiful, lichenous green. It was this color that Abel Keeling's eyes liked. For whatever else on the galleon his eyes rested, they found only whiteness, the whiteness of extreme eld. There were slightly varying degrees in her whiteness. Here she was of a white that glistened like salt granules, there of the grayish chalky white, and again her whiteness had the yellowish cast of decay. But everywhere it was the mild, disquieting whiteness of the materials out of which the life had departed. Her cordage was bleached as old straw is bleached, and half her ropes kept their shape a little more firmly than the ash of a string keeps its shape after the fire has passed. Her pallid timbers were white and clean as bones found in sand, and even the wild frankincense with which, for lack of tar at her vast touching of land, she had been pitched but dried to a pale hard gum that sparkled like quartz in her open seams. The sun was yet so pale a buckler of silver through the still white mist that not a cord of timber cast a shadow, and only Abel Keeling's face and hands were black, carked and cinder black from exposure to his pitiless rays. The galleon was the Mary of the Tower, and she had a frightful list to starboard. She counted as was she that her mainyard dipped one of its steel sickles into the glassy water, and had her foremast remained, or more than the broken stump of her own adventure mizzen, she must have turned over completely. Many days ago they had stripped the mainyard of its course, and had passed the sail under the Mary's bottom in the hope that it would stop the leak. This it had partly done as long as the galleon had continued to glide one way. Then, without coming about, she had begun to glide the other. The ropes had parted, and she had dragged the sail after her, leaving a broad tarnish on the silver sea. For it was the broadside of the galleon glided, almost imperceptibly, even sucking down. She glided as if a lodestone drew her, and at first Abel Keeling had thought it was a lodestone pulling at her iron, drawing her through the pearly mist that lay like face-cloths to the water, and hid at a short distance the tarnish left by the sail. But later he had known that it was no lodestone drawing at her iron. The motion was due, must be due, to the absolute deadness of the calm in that silent, sinister, 3 miles broad waterway. With the eye of his mind he saw that lodestone now as he lay against a gun truck, all but toppling down the deck. Soon that would happen again which had happened for 5 days past. He would hear again the chattering of monkeys and the screaming of parrots. The mat of green and yellow weeds would creep in towards the Mary over the quicksilver sea. Once more the sheer wall of rock would rise, and the men would run. But no, the men would not run this time to drop the fenders. There were no men left to do so, unless Bligh was still alive. Perhaps Bligh was still alive. He had walked halfway down the quarter-deck steps a little before the sudden nightfall of the day before, had then fallen and lain for a minute, dead Abel Keeling had supposed, watching him from his place by the gun truck, and had then got up again and tottered toward to the forecastle. His tall figure swaying and his long arms waving, Abel Keeling had not seen him since. Most likely he had died in the forecastle during the night. If he had not been dead, he would have come aft again for water. At the remembrance of the water, Abel Keeling lifted his head. The strands of lean muscle about his emaciated mouth worked, and he made a little pressure of his sun-blackened hand on the deck, as if to verify its steepness and his own balance. The mainmast was some 7 or 8 yards away. He put one stiff leg under him and began, seated as he was, to make the shuffling movements down the slope. To the mainmast near the belfry was affixed his contrivance for catching water. It consisted of a collar of rope set lower at one side than at the other, but that had been before the mast had steeved so many degrees away from the zenith, and tallowed beneath. The mists lingered later in that gully of strait than they did on the open ocean, and the collar of rope served as a collector of the dews that condensed on the mast. The drops fell into a small earthen pipkin placed on the deck beneath it. Abel Keeling reached the pipkin and looked into it. It was nearly a third full of fresh water. Good. If Bligh, the mate, was dead, so much the more water for Abel Keeling, master of the Mary of the Tower. He dipped 2 fingers into the pipkin and put them into his mouth. This he did several times. He did not dare to raise the pipkin to his black and broken lips, for dread of a remembered agony. He could not have told how many days ago, when a devil had whispered to him, and he had gulped down the contents of the pipkin in the morning, and for the rest of the day had gone waterless. Again he moistened his fingers and sucked them. Then he lay sprawling against the mast, idly watching the drops of water as they fell. It was odd how the drops formed. Slowly they collected at the edge of the tallowed collar, trembling in their fullness for an instant, and fell, another beginning the process instantly. It amused Abel Keeling to watch them. Why, he wondered, were all the drops the same size? What cause and compulsion did they obey that they never varied, and what frail tenuity held the little globules intact? It must be due to some cause. He remembered that the aromatic gun of the wild frankincense with which they had parcelled seams had hung on the buckets in great sluggish gouts, obedient to a different compulsion. Oil was different again, and so were juices and balsams. Only quicksilver, perhaps the heavy and motionless sea, put him in mind of quicksilver. He seemed obedient to no law. Why was it so? Bligh, of course, would have had his explanation. It was the hand of God. That sufficed for Bligh, who had gone forward the evening before, and whom Abel Keeling now seemed vaguely and as at a distance to remember as the deep-voiced fanatic who had sung his hymns as man by man he had committed the bodies of the ship's company to the deep. Bligh was that sort of man, accepting things without question, was content to take things as they were and be ready with the fenders when the wall of rock rose out of the opalescent mists. Bligh, too, like the water drops, had his law. That was his and nobody else's. There floated down from some rotten rope up aloft a flake of scurf that settled in the pipkin. Abel Keeling watched it dully as it settled towards the pipkin's rim. When presently he again dipped his fingers into the vessel, the water ran into the little vortex, drawing the flake with it. The water settled again, and again the minute flake determined towards the rim and adhered there, as if the rim had power to draw it. It was exactly so that the galleon was gliding towards the wall of rock, the yellow and green weeds and the monkeys and parrots. Put out into the midwater again, while there had been men to put her out, she had glided to the other wall. One force drew the chip in the pipkin and the ship over the tranced sea. It was the hand of God, said the Bligh. Abel Keeling, his mind now noting minute things and now clouded with torpor, did not at first hear a voice that was quakingly lifted up over by the forecastle, a voice that drew nearer to an accompaniment of swirling water. O thou that Jonas and the fish 3 days didst keep from pain, which was a figure of thy death and rising up again. It was Bligh singing one of his hymns. O thou that Noah keepest from flood, and Abram day by day, as he along through Egypt passed, didst guide him in the way. The voice ceased, leaving the pious period uncompleted. Bligh was alive at any rate. Abel Keeling resumed his fitful musing. Yes, that was the law of Bligh's life, to call things the hand of God, but Abel Keeling's law was different. No better, no worse, only different. The hand of God that drew chips and galleons must work by some method, and Abel Keeling's eyes were duly on the pipkin again, as if he sought the method there. Then conscious thought left him for a space. and when he resumed it was without obvious connection. Oars, of course, were the thing. With oars, men could laugh at calms, oars that only pinnaces and galleasses, now used, had their advantages. But oars, which was to say a method for, you could say if you liked, that the hand of God grasped the oar loom, was the breath of God filled the sail. Oars were antiquated, belonged to the past, and meant a throwing over of all that was good and new and return to fine lines, a battle formation abreast to give effect to the shock of the ram, and a day or two at sea and then to port again for provisions. Oars, no. Abel Killing was one of the new men, the men who swore by the line ahead. The broadside fire of sakers and demi-cannon, and weeks and months without a landfall. Perhaps one day the wits of such men as he would devise a craft, not oar-driven, because oars could not penetrate into the remote seas of the world, not sail-driven, because men who trusted to sails found themselves in an airless 3-mile strait, suspended motionless between cloud and water, ever gliding to a wall of rock, but a ship. To Noah and his sons with him, God spake, and thus he said, The covenant set I up with you and your posterity. It was Bly again, wandering somewhere in the waste. Abel Killing's mind was once more a blank. Then, slowly, as the water drops collected on the collar of rope, his thought took shape again. A galleass? No, not a galleass. Galleass made shift to be two things, and was neither. This ship, that the hand of man should one day make for the hand of God to manage, should be a ship that should take and conserve the force of the wind. Take it and store it as she stored her victuals. At rest when she wished, going ahead when she wished, turning the forces both of calm and storm against themselves. For of course her force must be wind, stored wind, bag of the winds, as the children's tale had it, wind probably directed upon the water astern, driving it away and urging forward the ship, acting by reaction. She would have a wind chamber into which wind would be pumped with pumps. Bly would call that equally the hand of God, the striving force of the ship of the future that Abel Killing dimly foreshadowed, as he lay between the mainmast and the belfry, turning his eyes now and then from the shy white timbers to the vivid green-bronze rust of the bell above him. Bly's face, liver-colored with the sun and ravaged from inwards by the fate that consumed him, appeared at the head of the quarter-deck steps. His voice beat uncontrolledly loud. And in the earth here is no place of refuge to be found, nor in the deep and water course that passeth underground. 2. Bly's eyes were lidded as if in contemplation of his inner ecstasy. His head was thrown back and his brows worked up and down tormentedly. His wide mouth remained open as his hymn was suddenly interrupted on the long-drawn note. From somewhere in the shimmering mist the note was taken up, and there drummed and rang and reverberated through the strait a windy, hoarse, and dismal bellow, alarming and sustained. A tremor rang through Bly. Moving like a sightless man, he stumbled forward from the head of the quarter-deck steps, and Abel Killing was aware of his gaunt figure behind him, taller for the steepness of the deck. As the vast empty sound died away, Bly laughed in his mania. Lord, hath the grave's wide mouth a tongue to praise thee? Lo, again! Again the cavernous sound possessed the air, louder and nearer. Through it came another sound, a slow throb, 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 throb. Again the sound ceased. Even Leviathan lifteth up his voice in praise, Bly sobbed. Abel Killing did not raise his head. There had returned to him the memory of that day when, before the morning mist had lifted from the strait, he had emptied the pipkin of the water that was the allowance until night before fall again. During that agony of thirst, he had seen shapes and heard sounds with other than his mortal eyes and ears, and even in the moments that had altered with his lightness, when he had known these to be hallucinations, they had come again. He had heard the bells on a Sunday in his own Kentish home, and calling of children at play, and unconcerned singing of men at their daily labor, and the laughter and gossip of the women as they had spread the linen on the hedge or distributed bread upon the platters. These voices had rung in his brain, interrupted now and then by the groans of Bly and of 2 other men who had been alive then. Some of the voices he had heard had been silent on earth this many a long year, but Abel Killing, thirst-tortured, had heard them, even as he was now hearing that vacant moaning, with the intermittent throbbing that filled the strait with alarm. "Praise him! Praise him! Praise him!" Bly was calling deliriously. Then a bell seemed to sound in Abel Killing's ears, and as if something in the mechanism of his brain had slipped, another picture rose in his fancy. The scene when the Mary of the Tower had put out to a bravery of swinging bells and shrill fifes and valiant trumpets. She had not been a leper-white galleon then. The scroll-work on her prow had twinkled with gilding. Her belfry and stern galleries and elaborate lanterns had flashed in the sun with gold. And her fighting tops and the war pavis about her waist had been gay with painted coats and scutcheons. To her sails had been stitched gaudy ramping lines of scarlet say, and from her mainyard, now dipping in the water, had hung the broad 2-tailed pennant with the Virgin and Child embroidered upon it. Then suddenly a voice about him seemed to be saying, "And 1/2-7, and 1/2-7," and in a twink the picture in Abel Killing's brain changed again. He was at home again, instructing his son, young Abel, in the casting of the lead from the skiff they had pulled out of the harbor. "And 1/2-7," the boy seemed to be calling. Abel Killing's blackened lips muttered, "Excellently well cast, Abel, excellently well cast." "And 1/2-7, and 1/2-7, 7, 7. "Ah," Abel Killing murmured, "that last was not a clear cast. Give me the line, thus it should go. Aye so. Soon ye shall sail the seas with me in the Mary of the Tower. You are already perfect in the stars and the motions of the planets. Tomorrow I will instruct you in the use of the backstaff." For a minute or two he continued to mutter, then he dozed. When again he came to semi-consciousness, it was once more to the sound of bells. At first faint, then louder, and finally becoming a noisy clamor immediately above his head. It was Bly. Bly, in a fresh attack of delirium, had seized the bell lanyard and was ringing the bell insanely. The cord broke in his fingers, but he thrust at the bell with his hand and again called aloud, "Upon an harp and an instrument of 10 strings, let heaven and earth praise thy name." He continued to call aloud and to beat on the bronze-rusted bell. "Ship ahoy! What ship's that?" One way have said that a veritable hail had come out of the mists, but Abel Killing knew those hails that had out of the mists. They came from ships which were not there. Aye, keep a good lookout, and have a care to your lodge manage. He muttered again to his son, but as sometimes a sleeper sits up in his dream or rises from his couch and walks, so all of a sudden Abel Killing found himself on his hands and knees on the deck, looking back over his shoulder. In some deep-seated region of his consciousness he was dimly aware that the cant of the deck had become more perilous, but his brain received the intelligence and forgot it again. It was looking out into the bright and baffling mists. The buckler of the sun was of a more ardent silver. The sea below it was lost in brilliant evaporation, and between them, suspended in the haze, no more substantial than the vague darknesses that afloat before dazzled eyes, a pyramidal phantom shape hung. Abel Keeling passed his hand over his eyes, but when he removed it, the shape was still there, gliding slowly towards the Mary's quarter. Its form changed as he watched it. The spirit-gray shape that had been a pyramid seemed to dissolve into 4 upright members, slightly graduated in tallness, that nearest the Mary's stern the tallest, and that to the left the lowest. It might have been the shadow of the gigantic set of reed pipes on which the vacant, mournful note had been sounded. And as he looked with fooled eyes, again his ears became fooled. "Ahoy there! What ship's that? Are you a ship? Here, give me that trumpet." Then a metallic barking. "Ahoy there! What the devil are you? Didn't you ring a bell? Ring it again, or blow a blast or something and go dead as slow." All this came, as it were, indistinctly and through a sort of high singing in Abel Keeling's own ears. Then he fancied a short, bewildered laugh, followed by a colloquy from somewhere between sea and sky. "Here, Ward, just pinch me, will you? Tell me what you see there. I want to know if I'm awake." "See where?" "There on the starboard bow." "Stop that ventilating fan. I can't hear myself think. See anything? Don't tell me it's that damned Dutchman. Don't pitch me that old Vanderdecken tale. Give me an easy one first, something about a sea serpent. You did hear that bell, didn't you? Shut up a minute. Listen." Again Bligh's voice was lifted up. "This is the covenant that I make. From henceforth nevermore will I again world destroy with water as before." Bligh's voice died away again in Abel Keeling's ears. "Oh, my fat Aunt Julia." The voice that seemed to come from between the sea and sky sounded again. Then it spoke more loudly. "I say," it began with careful politeness, "if you are a ship, do you mind telling us where the masquerade is to be? Our wireless is out of order, and we hadn't heard of it." "Oh, you do see it, Ward, don't you? Please tell us what the hell you are." Again Abel Keeling had moved as a sleepwalker moves. He had raised himself up by the belfry timbers, and Bligh had sunk in a heap on the deck. Abel Keeling's movement overturned the pipkin, which raced the little trickle of its contents down the deck and lodged where the still and brimming sea made, as it were, a chain with the carved balustrade of the quarter-deck. One link, a still gleaming edge, then a dark baluster, and then another gleaming link. For one moment only, Abel Keeling found himself noticing that that which had driven Bligh aft had been the rising of the water in the waist as the galleon settled by the head. The waist was now entirely submerged. Then once more he was absorbed in his dream, its voices and its shape in the mist, which had again taken the form of a pyramid before his eyeballs. "Of course," a voice seemed to be complaining anew, and still through that confused dining in Abel Keeling's ears. "We can't turn a 4-inch on it, and of course, Ward, I don't believe in 'em. D'ye hear, Ward? I don't believe in 'em, I say. Shall we call down to old A.B.? This might interest his scientific skippership. Oh, lower a boat and pull out to it, into it, over it, through it. Look at our chaps crowded on the barbette yonder. They've seen it. Better not give an order you know won't be obeyed." Abel Keeling, cramped against the antique belfry, had begun to find his dream interesting, for though he did not know her build, the mirage was the shape of a ship. No doubt it was projected from his brooding on ships of half an hour before, and that was odd. But perhaps, after all, it was not very odd. He knew that she did not really exist. Only the appearance of her existed, but things had to exist like that before they really existed. Before the Mary of the Tower had existed, she had been a shape in some man's imagination. Before that, some dreamer had dreamed the form of a ship with oars. And before that, far away in the dawn and infancy of the world, some seer had seen in a vision the raft before man had ventured to push out over the water on his two planks. And since this shape that rode before Abel Killing's eyes was a shape in his, Abel Killing's dream, he, Abel Killing, was the master of it. His own brooding brain had contrived her, and she was launched upon the illimitable ocean of his own mind. And I will not unmindful be of this, my covenant past, twixt me and you and every flesh, whilst that the world should last? Sang Bligh rapt. But as a dreamer, even in his dream, will scratch upon the wall by his couch some key or word put him in mind of his vision on the morrow, when it was left him, so Abel Killing found himself seeking some sign to be approved to this to whom no vision is vouchsafed. Even Bligh sought that, could not be silent in his bliss, but lay on the deck there, uttering great passionate amens and praising his Maker, as he sat upon an harp and an instrument of 10 strings. So with Abel Killing, it would be the amen of his life to have praised God, not upon a harp, but upon a ship that should carry her own power, that should store wind or its equivalent as she tore her victuals, that should be something wrested from the chaos of invention and ordered and disciplined and subordinated to Abel Killing's will. And there she was, that ship-shaped thing of gray spirit gray, with the 4 pipes that resembled a phantom organ, now broadside, and of equal length, and the ghost crew of that ship were speaking again. The interrupted silver chain by the quarter-deck balustrade had now become continuous, and the balusters made a herringbone over their own motionless reflections. The split water from the pipkin had dried, and the pipkin was not to be seen. Abel Killing stood beside the mast, erect as God made man go. With his leathery hand he smote upon the bell. He waited for the space of a minute, and then cried, "Ahoy! Ship ahoy! What ship's that?" We are not conscious in a dream that we are playing a game, the beginning and end of which are in ourselves. In this dream of Abel Killing's, a voice replied, "Hello! It's found its tongue. Ahoy there! What are you?" Loudly and in a clear voice, Abel Killing called, "Are you a ship?" With a nervous giggle, the answer came, "We are a ship, aren't we, Ward? I hardly feel sure. Yes, of course we're a ship. No question about us. The question is, what the dickens you are." Not all the words these voices used were intelligible to Abel Killing, and he knew not what it was on the tone of these last words that reminded him of the honor due to Mary of the Tower. Blister-wide and at the end of her life, as she was, Abel Killing was still jealous of her dignity. The voice had a youngish ring, and it was not fitting that young chins should be wagged about his galleon. He spoke curtly. "You that spoke, are you the master of that ship?" "Officer of the watch," the words floated back. "The captain's below." "Then send for him. It is with masters that masters hold speech," Abel Killing replied. He could see the 2 shapes, flat and without relief, standing on a high narrow structure with rails. One of them gave a low whistle, and seemed to be fanning his face, but the other rumbled something into a sort of funnel. Presently the 2 shapes became 3. There was a murmuring, as of a consultation, and then suddenly a new voice spoke. At its thrill and tone, a sudden tremor ran through Abel Killing's frame. He wondered what response it was that voice found in the forgotten recesses of his memory. "Ahoy!" seemed to call his new yet faintly remembered voice. "What's all this about? Listen. We are His Majesty's destroyer, Seabury, out of Betancourt. Last October, and nothing particular the matter with us. Now who are you?" "The Mary of the Tower, out of the port of Rye, on the day of St. Anne, and only 2 men." The gas interrupted him. "Out of where?" That voice that so strangely moved Abel Keeling said unsteadily, while Bligh broke into groans of renewed rapture. "Out of the port of Rye, in the county of Sussex. Nay, give ear, else I cannot make you hear me while this man's spirit and flesh wrestle so together." "Ahoy! Are you gone?" For the voices had become a low murmur, and the ship's shape had faded before Abel Keeling's eyes. Again and again he called. He wished to be informed of the disposition and economy of the wind chamber. "The wind chamber!" he called in an agony lest the knowledge most within his grasp should be lost. "I would know about the wind chamber." Like an echo there came back the words, uncomprehendingly uttered. "The wind chamber? That driveth the vessel. Hence, 'tis not wind. Still bow that is bent also conserveth force, the force you store to move at will through calm and storm. Can you make out what it's driving at? Oh, we shall all wake up in a minute. Quiet, I have it. The engines. It wants to know about our engines. It'll be wanting to see our papers presently, Rye Port. Well, no harm in humoring it. Let's see what it can make of this. Ahoy there!" came the voice to Abel Keeling, a little more strongly, as if a shifting wind carried it, in speaking faster and faster as it went on. "Not wind, but steam. D'ye hear? Steam. Steam. Steam in 8 Yarrow water tube boilers. STEAM. Steam. Got it? And we've twin screw triple expansion engines. Indicated horsepower 4,000, and we can do 430 revolutions per minute. Savvy? Is there anything your phantomhood would like to know about our armament?" Abel Keeling was muttering fretfully to himself. It annoyed him that words, in his own vision, should have no meaning for him. How did words come to him in a dream that he had no knowledge of when wide awake? The Sea Pink, that was the name of this ship. The pink was long and narrow, low cargage, and square-built aft. And as for our armament, the voice with the tones that so profoundly troubled Abel Keeling's memory continued, we've 2 revolving Whitehead torpedo tubes, 3 6-pounders on the upper deck, and that's a 12-pounder forward there by the conning tower. I forgot to mention that we're nickel steel, with a coal capacity of 60 tons and most damnably placed bunkers, and that 30 1/4 knots is about our top. Care to come aboard? But the voice was speaking still more rapidly and feverishly, as if to fill a silence with no matter what, and the shape that was uttering it was straining forward anxiously over the rail. Ugh. But I'm glad this happened in the daylight, another voice was muttering. I wish I was sure it was happening at all, poor old spook. I suppose it would keep its feet if her deck was quite vertical. Think she'll go down or just melt? Kind of go down, without wash. Listen, here's the other one now. For Bligh was singing again. For Lord, thou know'st our nature such, if we great things obtain, and in the getting of the same do feel no grief or pain. We little do esteem thereof, but hardly brought to pass. 1,000 times we do esteem, more than the other was. But oh, look at the other. Oh, I say, wasn't he a grand old boy? Look! For transfiguring Abel Keeling's form as a prophet's form was transfigured in the instant of his rapture, flooding his brain with the white eureka light of perfect knowledge. That for which he in his dream had been at a standstill had come. He knew her, this ship of the future, as if God's finger had bitten her lines into his brain. He knew her as those already sinking into the grave know things, miraculously, completely accepting life's impossibilities, with a nodded, "Of course," from the ardent mouths of her 8 furnaces to the last drip from her lubricators, from her bed plates to the breeches of her quick firers. He knew her, read her gauges, thumbed her bearings, gave the ranges from her range finders, and lived the life he lived who was in command of her. And he would not forget on the morrow, as he had forgotten on many morrows. For at last he had seen the water about his feet, and knew that there would be no morrow for him in this world. And even in that moment, with but a sand or two to run in his glass, indomitable, insatiable, dreaming dream on dream, he could not die until he knew more. He had 2 questions to ask, and a master question, and but a moment remained. Sharply his voice rang out, "Ho there! This ancient ship, the Mary of the Tower, cannot steam 30¼ knots, but yet she can sail the waters. What more does your ship? Can she soar above them, as the fowls of the air soar? Lord, he thinks we're an aeroplane. No, she can't. And can you dive even as the fishes of the deep? No, those are submarines. We aren't a submarine." But Abel Killing waited for no more. He gave an exulting chuckle. "Oho, 30 knots, but on the face of the waters, no more than that, oho. Now my ship, the ship I see as a mother sees full grown the child she has but conceived, my ship, I say, aho! My ship shall, below there, trip that gun." The cry came suddenly and alertly as the muffled sound came from below, and an ominous tremor shook the galleon. "By Jove, her guns are breaking loose below! That's her finish!" "Trip that gun and double breach the others," Abel Killing's voice rang out, as if there had been any to obey him. He had braced himself within the belfry frame, and then in the middle of the next order his voice suddenly failed him. His ship shape, that for the moment he had forgotten, rode once more before his eyes. This was the end, and his master question, apprehension for the answer to which was now torturing his face and well-nigh bursting his heart, was still unasked. "Ho! He that spoke with me, the master," he cried in a voice that ran high. "Is he there?" Yes, came the other voice across the water, sick with suspense. "Oh, be quick!" There was a moment in which hoarse cries from many voices, a heavy thud and rumble on wood, and a crash of timbers, and a gurgle and a splash were indescribably mingled. The gun under which Abel Killing had lain had snapped her rotten breechings and plunged down the deck carrying Bligh's unconscious form with it. The deck came up vertical, and for one instant longer Abel Killing clung to the belfry. "I cannot see your face," he screamed, "but meseems your voice is a voice I know. What is your name?" In a torn sob the answer came across the water. "Killing! Abel Killing! Oh my God!" And Abel Killing's cry of triumph that mounted to a victorious "Huzzah!" was lost in the downward plunge of the Mary of the Tower, that left the strait empty save for the sun's fiery blaze and the last smoke-like evaporation of the mists. The next story is going to be Fear by Ahmed Abdullah. But before we go there, we have to go to our next music break. On this break, we have Mr. Hosni Bronx, originally from Jamaica, hailing also from Bronx, New York, King Cinnamon from Biafra, Nigeria, and Nonye Toria from Ghana, South Africa. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
Babylon make you suffer. What you desire, young life. We are ready to fight. Hard life for my people. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know how to fight, 'cause my people suffer. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you want, Babylon? I don't understand why this world is so strange, strange with my people. I don't know how to fight, but if we are together, it will work. It will work. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Babylon no have no hearts. 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 My people, you have to survive. Yeah, you must rebuild you and make your own way. You must not give up. The beginning of the revolt will start. We need to follow our true destiny. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. The obstacle we face, yeah, is Babylon. The world is a good place, yeah, for our freedom. You take everything, you don't bring anything, yeah, yeah. Young life, oh, not dread. We must believe in a magical, powerful force that unite us, and not just these people stay speechless again. We don't want to talk, no, it's time to fight, yeah. We start talking. Babylon make you suffer. 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 What you desire, young life. We are ready to fight.
Oh yeah, it's funky on the beats.
Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat the sweetie, sweetie. Make it rock my body, I am feeling honey. Make it touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Mukeji, go bere muketa. Oya muko mukeji, oya bere muketa. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy kosi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy try him pussy, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy and his baby, them there for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl the holler. Now daddy begin the open the shirt collar. Now something come out. Daddy begin the suck am. Daddy move echo. Omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa. Omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ẹjọ́. Daddy saucy, omo ni ẹjọ́. All my men they gbero. All my guys they gbero. Imarama Rosie. Imarama Rosie. All my men they gbero. All my guys they gbero. Imarama Rosie. Imarama Rosie. Suck my boots, you got my body loose. Anytime you touch me, you got me confused. Suck my boots, you got my body loose. Anytime you touch me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, do it softly. As you wine your body, eat the sweetie. Shake it up my body, I am feeling horny. Shake it up my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boots, you got my body loose. Anytime you touch me, you got me confused. Suck my boots, you got my body loose. Anytime you touch me, you got me confused. Kissy, amani, ejo, daddy saucy, amani, ejo, daddy kosi, amani, ejo, daddy kahe kosi, amani, ejo, daddy contact, amani, ejo, daddy comfort, daddy consist, amani, ejo, daddy can eat, daddy 120, amani, ejo, daddy 18, daddy 240, amani, ejo, daddy 360, daddy and the baby, them there for corner, begin the touch and the girl the holler, daddy begin the open the shirt collar, something come out, daddy begin the sucker, daddy move echo, amani pe mukeji, daddy bere muketa, amani fún mi lẹ́yìn, daddy fisi, amani ejo, daddy saucy, amani ejo. All my men they gbero, all my guys they gbero. Imarama.
Oh yeah, it's funky on the beat.
Seany mystery was trying to creep in on us. You gotta wait till the end of the show, buddy. Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know or not, but it appears that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, or Mani, or however you like to pronounce it, has been destroyed. Which, there's lots of people over in California and probably all kinds of places that are celebrating because they have not been able to see their families for decades because of his rule of power. So hopefully the new leadership that comes about is not more evil and is more open to allowing these families to see each other again. That would just be great, don't you think? That would be awesome for sure. Alright, we're going to get back to our book. The next story we are reading is Fear by Ahmed Abdullah. Let me turn this down just a bit more. Just a smidge. It doesn't appear to be too much. Yeah, let's leave it, I guess. The fact that the man whom he feared had died 10 years earlier did not in the least lessen Stuart McGregor's obsession of horror, of a certain grim expectancy every time he recalled that final scene, just before Farragut Hutchinson disappeared in the African jungle that stood spectrally motionless as if forged out of some blackish green metal in the haggard moonlight. As he reconstructed it, the whole scene seemed unreal, almost oppressively, ludicrously theatrical. The pall of sodden, Stygian darkness all around, the night sounds of soft-winged, obscene things flapping lazily overhead or brushing against the fury of furry trees that held the woolly heat of the tropical day like boiler pipes in a factory, the slimy, swishy things that glided and crawled and wiggled underfoot, the vibrant glow of a hunting lioness that began in a deep basso and peaked to a shrill, high-pitched, ridiculously inadequate treble, the spotted hyena's vicious, bluffing bark, the chirp and whistle of innumerable monkeys, a warthog breaking through the undergrowth with a clumsy, clownish crash, and somewhere very far away, the staccato thumping of a signal drum, and more faintly yet the answer from the next in line. He had seen many such drums made from fire-hollowed palm trees and covered with tightly stretched skin, often the skin of a human enemy. Ooh, it's gross. Yes, he remembered it all. He remembered the night jungle creeping in on their camp like a sentient, malign being, and then that ghastly, ironic moon squinting down, just as Farragut Hutchison walked away between the 6 giant, plumed, ochre-smeared Makoto warriors, and bringing into crass relief the tattoo mark on the man's back where the shirt had been torn to tatters by camel thorns, and wait-a-bit spikes and saber-shaped palm leaves. He recalled the occasion when Farragut Hutchison had had himself tattooed, after a crimson drunken spree at Madame Celeste's place in Port Said, the other side of the Red Sea trader's bazaar, to please a half-caste Swahili dancing girl who looked like a golden Madonna of evil, familiar with all the 7 sins. Doubtless the girl had gone shares with the Levantine craftsman who had done the work, an eagle in bold red and blue, surmounted by a lopsided crown and surrounded by a wavy design. The eagle was in profile, and its single eye had a disconcerting trick of winking sardonically whenever Farragut Hutchison moved his back muscles or twitched his shoulder blades. Always in his memory, Stuart McGregor saw that tattoo mark. Always did he see the wicked leering squint in the eagle's eye, and then he would scream, wherever he happened to be, in a theater, in a Broadway restaurant or across some good friends' mahogany and beef. Thinking back, he remembered that for all their bravado, for all their showing off to each other, both he and Farragut Hutchinson had been afraid since that day up in Hinterland, when, drunk with fermented palm wine, they had insulted the fetish of the Bakutos, while the men were away hunting and none left to guard the village except the women and children and a few feeble old men, whose curses and high-pitched maledictions were picturesque but hardly effectual enough to stop him and his partner from doing a vulgar, intoxicated dance in front of the idol, from grinding burning cigar ends into its squat, repulsive features, and from generally polluting the juju hut, not to mention the thorough and profitable looting of the place. They had got away with the plunder, gold dust, and a handful of splendid canary diamonds before the Bakuto warriors had returned. But fear had followed them, stalked them, trailed them, a fear different from any they had ever experienced before. And be it mentioned that their path of life had been crimson and twisted and fantastic, that they had followed the little squinting swarth-headed, hunchbacked genie of adventure wherever man's primitive lawlessness rolls above the law, from Nome to Timbuktu, from Peru to the black felt tints of outer Mongolia, from the Australian bush to the absinthe-sodden Apache haunts of Paris. Be it mentioned furthermore that thus often they had stared death in the face, and, not being fools, had found the staring distasteful and shivery. But what they had felt in that journey back to the security of the coast and the ragged Union Jack flapping disconsolately above the British governor's official corrugated iron mansion had been something worse than mere physical fear. That had been a nameless, brooding, sinister apprehension, which had crept through their souls, a harshly discordant note that had peeled through the hidden recesses of their beings. Everything had seemed to mock them, the crawling, sour, miasmic jungle, the slippery roots and timber falls, the sun of the tropics, brown decayed like the sun on the day of judgment, the very flowers, spiky, odorous, waxen, unhealthy, lascivious. At night, when they had rested in some clearing, they had even feared their own campfire flaring up. Twinkling, flickering, then coiling into a ruby ball, had seemed completely isolated in the purple night. Isolated. And they had longed for human companionship, white companionship. White faces, white slang, white curses, white odors, white obscenities. Why? They would have welcomed a decent, square, honest white murder, a knife flashing in some yellow-haired Norse sailor's brawny fist, a belaying pin in the hand of some bullying Liverpool tramp ship skipper, some gnome gambler's six-gun splattering laden death, some Apache of Rue de Venise garroting a passer-by. But here in the African jungle, and how Stuart McGregor remembered it, the fear of death had seemed pregnant with unmentionable horror. There had been no sounds except the buzzing of the tsetse fly and a faint rubbing of drums, whispering through the desert and jungle like the voices of disembodied souls astray on the outer rim of creation. And overhead the stars, always at night, 3 stars glittering, leering, and Stuart McGregor, who had gone through college, and had once written his college measure of limping, anemic verse, had pointed at them. The 3 stars of Africa, he had said, the star of violence, the star of lust, and the little stinking star of greed. And he had broken into staccato laughter which had struck Farragut Hutchinson as singularly out of place, and had caused him to blurt forth with a wicked curse. "Shut your trap, you!" For already they had begun to quarrel, those 2 pals of a dozen tight, righteous adventures already imperceptibly, gradually, like the shadow of a leaf through summer dusk, a mutual hatred had grown up between them. But they had controlled themselves. The diamonds were good. could be sold at a big figure, and even split in two would mean a comfortable steak. Then, quite suddenly, had come the end for them. And the twisting, gliding skill of Stuart McGregor's fingers had made sure that Farragut Hutchison should be that one. Years after, when Africa as a whole had faded to a memory of coiling, unclean shadows, Stuart McGregor used to say, with that rather plaintive, monotonous drawl of his, that the end of his phantasmal African adventure had been different from what he had expected it to be. In a way, he had found it disappointing. Not that it had lacked in purely dramatic thrills and blood-curdling trimmings. That wasn't it. On the contrary, it had had a plethora of thrills. But rather, he must have been keyed up to high a pitch. Must have expected too much, feared too much during that journey from Bocado village back through the hinterland. Thus, when one night the Bocado warriors had come from nowhere out of the jungle, hundreds of them, silent as if the wilderness had spewed them forth, it had seemed quite prosy. Prosy, too, had been the expectation of death, and it even seemed a welcome relief from the staining fatigues of the jungle pool, the recurrent fits of fever, the flying and crawling pests, the gnawing moroseness which is so typically African. An explosion of life and hatred. Stuart McGregor used to say, "That's what I had expected, don't you see? Quick and merciless." And it wasn't, for the end came, slow and inevitable. Solid Greek in a way, and so courtly, so polite. That was the worst of it. For the leader of the Bacchus, a tall, broad, frizzy, odorous warrior, with a face like a black Nero with a dash of Manchu emperor, had bowed before them with a great clanking of barbarous ornaments. There had been no marring taint of hatred in his voice as he told them that they must pay for their insults to the fetish. He had not even mentioned the theft of the gold dust and diamonds. "My heart is heavy at the thought, white chiefs," he said, "but you must pay." Stuart McGregor had stammered in effectually foolish apologies. We were drunk. We didn't know what you were doing?" The Bacatu had finished the sentence for him, with a little melancholy sigh. "And there's forgiveness in my heart." You mean to say," Farragut Hutchison had jumped up with extended hand, blurting out hectic thanks, "forgiveness in my heart, not the juju's." Gently continued the black man, "For the juju never forgives. On the other hand, the juju is fair. He wants his just measure of blood, not an ounce more, therefore." Bacatu had gone on, and his face had been as stony and as passionless as that of the Buddha who meditates in the shade of the cobra's hood. "The choice will be yours." "Choice?" Farragut Hutchison had looked up, a gleam of hope in his eyes. "Yes, choice. Which one of you will die?" Bacatu had smiled with the same suave courtliness which had somehow increased the utter horror of the scene. "Die? Oh, a slow death, befitting the insult to the juju, befitting the juju's great holiness." Suddenly, Stuart McGregor had understood that there would be no arguing, no bargaining whatsoever, and quickly had come his hysterical question, "Who? I or—" He had slurred and stopped, somehow ashamed, and the Bacatu had finished the interrupted question with gentle, gliding, inhumane laughter. "Your friend? White chief, that is for you two to decide. I only know that the juju has spoken to the priest, and that he is satisfied with the life of one of you two, the life and the death, a slow death." He had paused, then had continued gently, so very, very gently, "Yes, a slow death, depending entirely upon the vitality of the one of you two who will be sacrificed to the juju. There will be little knives, there will be the flying insects which follow the smell of blood, and the festering flesh. 2, there will be many crimson-headed ants, many ants, and a thin river of honey to show them the trail. He had yawned, then he had gone on. Consider that Juju is just. He only wants to sacrifice of one of you, and you yourselves must decide which one shall go, and which one shall stay. And remember the little knives? Be pleased to remember that many ants which follow the honey trail I shall return shortly to hear your choice. He had bowed, and with his silent warriors had stepped back into the jungle that had closed behind them like a curtain. Even in that moment of stark, enormous horror too great to be grasped, horror that swept over and beyond the barriers of fear, even in that moment Stuart McGregor had realized that, by leaving the choice to them, Betancourt had committed refined cruelty worthy of a more civilized race, and had added a psychic torture fully as dreadful as the physical torture of the little knives. Too, in that moment of ghastly, lecherous expectancy, he had known that it was Farragut Hutchison who would be sacrificed to the Juju. Farragut Hutchison, who sat there, staring into the campfire, making queer little funny noises in his throat. Suddenly Stuart McGregor had laughed. He remembered that laugh to his dying day, and had thrown a greasy pack of playing cards into the circle of meager, indifferent light. "Let the cards decide, old boy," he had shouted. "One hand of poker and no drawing to your hand. Showdown. That's square, isn't it?" "Sure," the other had replied, still staring straight ahead of him. "Go ahead and deal." His voice had drifted into a mumble while Stuart McGregor had picked up the deck, had shuffled, slowly, mechanically. As he shuffled, it had seemed to him as if his brain was frantically telegraphing to his fingers, as if all those delicate little nerves that ran from the back of his skull down to his fingertips were throbbing, a clicking little chorus. "Do it, Mac. Do it, Mac. Do it, Mac," with a maddening, syncopated rhythm. And he had kept on shuffling, had kept on watching the motions of his fingers, and had seen that his thumb and second finger had shuffled the ace of hearts to the bottom of the deck. Had he done it on purpose? He did not know then. He never found out, though. In his memory, he lived through the scene 1,000 times. But there were the little knives, there were the ants, there was the honey trail, there was his own hard decision to live. And years earlier, he had been a professional faro dealer at Silver City. Another ace had joined the first at the bottom of the deck, the third, the fourth, and then Farragut Hutchison's violent, "Deal, man, deal! You're driving me crazy, get it over with!" The sweat had been pouring from Stuart McGregor's face. His blood had throbbed in his veins. Something like a sledgehammer had drummed at the base of his skull. "Hut, won't you?" he had said, his voice coming as if from very far away. The other had waved a trembling hand. "No, no. Deal them as they lie. You won't cheat me." Stuart McGregor had cleared a little space on the ground with the point of his shoe. He remembered the motion. He remembered how the dead leaves had stirred with a dry, rasping, tragic sound. How something slimy and phosphorus green had squirmed through the tufted jungle grass. How a little furry scorpion had scurried away with a clicking. He had dealt. Mechanically, even as he was watching them, his fingers had given himself 5 cards from the bottom of the deck. 4 aces and the queen of diamonds, and the next second, in answer to Farragut Hutchison's choked. "Showdown. I have 2 pair, kings and jacks." His own well-simulated shriek of joy and triumph. "I win. I've 4 aces. Every ace in the pack." And then Farragut Hutchison's weak, ridiculous exclamation. Ridiculous, considering the dreadful fate that awaited him. "Gee Whittaker, you're some lucky guy, aren't you, Mac?" At the same moment, Betancourt chief had stepped out of the jungle, followed by half a dozen warriors. In the final scene, that ghastly ironic moon squinting down just as Farragut Hutchison had walked away between the giant, doomed, ochre-smeared Bakoto warriors, and bringing into stark relief the tattoo mark on his back, where the shirt had been torn to tatters, and the leering, evil wink in the eagle's eye as Farragut Hutchison twitched his shoulder blades with absurd, nervous resignation. Stuart McGregor remembered it every day of his life. He spoke of it to many, but only to Father Aloysius O'Donnell, the priest who officiated in the little Gothic church around the corner on 9th Avenue, did he tell the whole truth. Did he confess that he had cheated? "Of course I cheated," he said. "Of course," and with a sort of mocking bravado. "What would you have done, Padre?" The priest, who was old and wise and gentle, thus not all sure of himself, shook his head. "I don't know," he replied. "I don't know." "Well, I do know. You would have done what I did. You wouldn't have been able to help yourself." Then in a low voice, "And you would have paid as I pay every day, every minute, every second of my life." "Regret, repentance," murmured the priest, but the other cut him short. "Repentance? Nothing. Regret nothing. I repent nothing. I'd do the same tomorrow. It isn't that." "Oh, that? What do you call it? Sting of conscience that's driving me crazy? It's fear." "Fear of what?" asked Father O'Donnell. "Fear of Farragut Hutchison, who is dead." 10 years ago, and he knew that Farragut Hutchison had died. For not long afterward, a British trader had come upon certain gruesome but unmistakable remains and had brought the tale to the coast. Yet was there fear in Stuart McGregor's soul, fear worse than the fear of little knives, fear of Farragut Hutchison, who was dead? No. He did not believe that the man was dead. He did not believe it, could not believe it. And even suppose he's dead, he used to say to the priest, "He'll get me. He'll get me as sure as you're born. I saw it in the eye of that eagle, the squinting eye of that infernal tattooed eagle." Then he would turn a grayish yellow. His whole body would tremble with a terrible palsy and in a sort of whine, which was both ridiculous and pathetic, given his size and bulk, given the crimson twisted adventures through which he had passed. He would exclaim, "He'll get me! He'll get me! He'll get me even from beyond the grave!" And then Father O'Donnell would cross himself rapidly, just a little guiltily. It is said that there is a morbid curiosity which forces the murderer to view the place of his crime. Some psychic reason of the same kind may have caused Stuart McGregor to decorate the walls and corners of his sitting room with the memories of that Africa which he feared and hated, and which daily he was trying to forget. With a shimmering, cruel mass of jungle curious, sjambaks and assegais, signal drums and daggers, knob carries and rhino shields and whatnot. Steadily he added to his collection, buying in auction rooms and little shops on the waterfront from sailors and ship pursers and collectors who had duplicates for sale. He became a well-known figure in the row of antique stores in back of Madison Square Garden, and was so liberal when it came to payment that Morris Newman, who specialized in African curios, would send the pick of all the new stuff that he brought to his house. It was on a day in August, one of those tropical New York days when the very birds gasp for air, when orange flaming sun rays drop from the brazen sky like crackling spears and the melting asphalt picks them up again and tosses them high. That Stuart McGregor, returning from a short walk, found a large, round package in his sitting room. "Mr. Newman sent it," his servant explained. "He said it's a rare curio and he's sure you'll like it." "All right." The servant bowed, left, and closed the door while Stuart McGregor cut the twine, unwrapped the paper, looked. And then Suddenly, he screamed with fear, and just as suddenly, the scream of fear turned into a scream of maniacal joy. For the thing which Newman had sent him was an African signal drum covered with tightly stretched skin, human skin, white skin, and square in the center there was a tattoo mark, an eagle in red and blue, surmounted by a lopsided crown and surrounded by a wavy design. Here was the final proof that Farragut Hutcheson was dead, that forever he was rid of his fear. In a paroxysm of joy, he picked up the drum and clutched it to his heart, and then he gave a cry of pain. His lips quivered, frothed. His hands dropped the drum and fanned the air, and he looked at the thing that had fastened itself to his right wrist. It seemed like a short length of rope, grayish in color, spotted with dull red. Even as Stuart McGregor dropped to the floor, dying, he knew what had happened. A little venomous snake, an African fer-de-lance, that had been curled up in the inside of the drum, benumbed by the cold, and had been revived by the splintering heat of New York. Yes, even as he died, he knew what had happened. Even as he died, he saw that malign, obscene squint in the eagle's eye. Even as he died, he knew that Farragut Hutcheson had killed him from beyond the grave. We're not going to get through this story, of course, but we'll begin it. This is Lucifer by John D. Swain. The notorious Remsen case was table talk a year or so ago, although a few today could quote the details offhand. Because of it, half a dozen men were discussing psychic trivialities in a more or less desultory way. Livin, the psychoanalyst, was speaking. It all hinges on a tendency which is perhaps best expressed in such old saws as drowning men clutch at straws, any port in a storm, or a gambling chance. When men have exhausted science and religion, they turn to mediums and crystal gazers and clairvoyants and patent medicines. I knew an intelligent pharmacist who was dying of a malignant disease, operated on 3 times. Specialists had given him up. Then he began to take the nostrums and cure-alls on his own shelves, although he knew perfectly well what they contained, or could easily enough have found out. Consulted a lot of herb doctors and long-haired Indian healers and advertising specialists. And, of course, without result, commented the little English doctor. "I wouldn't say that," said Bliven. It kept alive the forlorn spark of hope in his soul. Better than merely folding his hands and waiting for the inevitable. He was just starting in with the miraculous Brazilian root, when he snuffed out. On the whole, he lived happier and quite possibly longer because of all the fake remedies and doctors he spent so much money on. It's all in your mind, you know. Nothing else counts much. All fakes, including the records of the PSR, nodded Holmes, who lectured on experimental psychology. The little doctor shook his head, officiatingly. "I shouldn't go as far as that, really," he objected, "because every now and then, in the midst of their conscious faking, as you call it, with marked cards and prepared slates and hidden magnets and invisible wires and all, these mediums and pseudo-magicians come up against something that utterly baffles them. I have talked with a well-known prestidigitator who has a standing bet of 100 guineas that he can duplicate the manifestations of any medium, and yet he states that every now and then he finds himself utterly baffled. He can fake the thing cleverly, you understand, but he cannot fathom the unknown forces back of it all. It is dangerous ground, it is sometimes blasphemy, it is blundering in where angels fear to tread." "Pieful," snorted Bliven. "The subconscious mind explains it all, and we have only skirted the edge of our subject. When we have mastered it, we shall do thing right in the laboratory that will put every astrologer and palmist and tea ground prophet out of business. Nobody seemed to have anything to answer, and the psychoanalyst turned to the little doctor. "You know this, Royce," he asserted a bit defiantly. "I don't pretend to follow you new era chaps as closely as I ought, but I recall an incident in my early practice that is not explicable in the present-day stage of your science as I understand it." Livin grunted. "Well, shoot," he said. "Of course we can't check up your facts, but if you were an accurate observer, we may be able to offer a plausible theory at least." Royce flushed at his brisk way of putting it, but took no offense. Everyone makes allowances for Bliven, who is a good fellow, but crudely sure of himself, and a slave to his hobby. "It happened a long, long time ago," began Royce, "when I was an intern in a London hospital. If you know anything about our hospitals, you will understand that they are about the last places on earth for anything bizarre to occur in. Everything is frightfully ethical and prosy and red-tapey, far more so than in institutions over here, better as these are in many ways. But almost anything can happen in London, and does. You love to point to New York as the typical cosmopolis because it has a large Italian population, then has Rome, a larger German than Berlin, a Jewish than Jerusalem, and so forth. Well, London was all this and more. It was nuclei of Afghans and Turkomans and Arabs. It has neighborhoods where conversation is carried on in no known tongue. It even has a synagogue of black Jews, dating certainly from the Plantagenet dynasty and probably earlier. Myriads spend all their lives in London and die knowing nothing about it. Sir Walter Besant devoted 20 years to the collecting of data for his history of the city, and confessed that he had only a smattering of his subject. Men learned somewhat of its 100 phases passing well. Scotland Yard agents, buyers of old pewter or black-letter books, tea importers, hotel keepers, solicitors, clubmen. But outside of their own little broods, the eternal fog hiding the real London in its sticky yellow embrace. I was born there, attended its university, practiced for a couple of years in Whitechapel, and migrated to the fashionable Westminster district, but I visit the city as a stranger. So if anything mysterious were to happen anywhere, it might well be in London, although, as I have said, one would hardly look for it in one of our solid, dull, intensely prosaic hospitals. Watts Bedloe was the big man in my day. You will find his works in your medical libraries, Bliven, though I dare say he has been thrust aside by the on-march of science. Osteopathy owes a deal to him, I think, and I know that Dr. Lawrence, the great orthopedist of today, freely acknowledges his own debt. There was brought to us one day a peculiarly distressing case, the only child of Sir William Hutchinson, a widower whose hopes had almost idolatrously centered in this boy, who was a cripple. You would have to be British to understand just how Sir William felt. He was a keen sportsman, played all outdoor games superlatively well, and rode to hounds over his own fields, shot tigers from an elephant's back in India, and on foot in Africa, rented a salmon stream in Norway, captained the all-English polo team for years, sailed his own yacht, bred his own hunters, had climbed all more difficult Swiss peaks, and was the first amateur to operate biplane. So, that to natural parental grief was added the bitter downfall of all the plans he had for this boy, instructing him in the fine art of fly casting, straight shooting, hard riding, and all that sort of thing, instead of a companion who could take up the life of his advancing years were forcing him to relinquish in a measure. He had a hopeless cripple to carry on and end his line. He was a clear, patient little lad with the most beautiful head and great, intelligent eyes. But his wretched little body was enough to wring your heart. Twisted, warped, shriveled, and far beyond the skill of Watts Bedloe himself, who had been Sir William's last resort, when he sadly confessed that there was nothing he could do, that science and skill for nursing might add a few years to the mere existence of the little martyr. You will understand that his father came to that pass which you, Blyven, have illustrated in citing the case of pharmacists. He was, in short, ready to try anything, to turn to quacks, necromancers, to Satan himself, if his son might be made whole. Dang. Well, I think we're going to stop there because we're going to have to be heading out here. I'm going to having to left. But yeah, those were some pretty good stories, if you ask me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you enjoying the book? We're getting through it pretty quickly, but we still have quite a ways to go. And then I have 3 books piled up from the library to get into after that. But on that note, boys and girls, we are at the end of the show. Thank you so much once again for hanging out with me tonight. It was a pleasure hanging out with you and hopefully entertaining you. Hopefully it took your mind off of some of the drama in the world that's going on. Thank you to all of my friends out there, wherever you may be listening, Beyond the Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow night when we're going to do trippy TikToks with me, TessaTNT. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. And I really do mean it, like religion, politics, all that stuff should not be turning us against each other. We should be respecting each other's rights, ideals, etc. Doesn't mean we have to go along with it or, believe it ourselves, but everybody has the right to state their own opinions. Yeah. If you guys have the means, ability, or initiative, if you believe in what I'm doing here, just enjoy hanging out with me on the airwaves, sling or fling some green my way if you would. It would really help me keep things afloat here. You can donate by mail, P.O. Box 663, Bayfield, Colorado, 81122. Cash App, $TessaTNT, PayPal at TessaTNT, and Venmo at Tessa-Thomas-Peterson. Nighty night, love and light, my wonderful yous. I will see you back here tomorrow. Same crazy time, same crazy place. Sweet dreams.